So, Karen, we can't call this the Monday morning mechanic because it's not Monday morning.
I'm pretty sure it's Tuesday night. Tuesday night
mechanic sounds kind of dumb. So,
January recap, because we haven't done this at all this whole month.
can you explain to the listeners why we haven't done this?
Oh, get in line. No, there is just a lot going on in the Brotherson house. So we wanted to, but we just couldn't quite do it. And then we got an email from Dave.
We've had a few emails asking if we were going to do it, but then we had one gentleman email us tonight and say, "Really miss that podcast you used to do with your wife on Supercross." And I've had people asking, "Are you even watching Supercross?" And the answer is, "Yeah, we're watching Supercross. We watched all of them because we're big time fans. We make time for that." But then what happens is after the race, it's like 200 o'clock in the night.
And we're tired.
And there's 12 kids to put to bed.
That's an exaggeration. There's only 4.
It feels like we have 12. Are you sure we don't have 12?
I'm sure. We do have a dog.
Can you prove it to me that we don't have
4 kids and a dog?
It feels like we've got a lot more going on. We've got a 15-year-old daughter who is, running all over. She's one of the high school basketball team managers, and so she's gone to every high school basketball game that there are, which is there's the sophomore games, the JV games, the varsity games. So she'll leave at like 7 o'clock in the morning and come back at like 10:30 at night.
Because she's also at the practices and the games. So yeah, she's gone.
And then Connor, 12-year-old boy, he's pretty good. He does his thing and he's all right.
He's recovering from an ankle injury.
Yep.
Or else he'd be running. But
then we've got Case, who's 10, and we're running to basketball practice and basketball games, and
it's basketball season over here.
And then Kenzie is the 3-year-old, and she's just like, she broke her arm by falling off the chair the other day. We would have done this Monday morning mechanic podcast last Sunday, but she fell off the flipping chair and broke her arm.
True story.
We were going to record it. We were talking all about it that morning. It felt like things were lighter. It felt like we had more time that day. And then next thing you know,
well, bam.
At dinner time, Kenzie falls off the chair, breaks her arm. I knew it was broken after 2 minutes.
Yeah, a parent can always tell by that cry that like goes silent for too long. And then
So now we're 3 minutes into this. We still haven't talked about Supercross.
Supercross, here we come.
But this is
life.
This is just telling you, if you're listening to this, and to be honest, like even the podcast, I haven't done as many podcast episodes as I want to. There are just so many. Life is pulling us in so many different directions right now, and even just another peek behind the curtain. We've got obviously 4 kids. I run Dirt Bike Channel here from the house, and then Karen she's starting a business as well. So it's like we're trying to run 2 businesses out of the home and also be parents, and we love doing these podcasts, but it's been tough. It's been tough to find the time. I know that sounds dumb because you're like, hey, isn't it COVID-19 pandemic and everyone's working from home? But I swear we are more busy than we've ever been, and I feel like I've been saying that for a decade. And it just keeps getting busier and busier and busier. And then at some point, maybe 20 years down the road, it's going to start getting less busy. And then that's going to be a weird feeling, Then
we can travel. That'd be so fun.
That would be fun.
You can go to all the Supercross races.
Yeah.
That's my idea of traveling here, folks.
Yeah. Although I don't really want to go to these Indianapolis Supercross races when it's in the snow and cold and stuff. We looked at the schedule, and maybe we'll go to one of these Texas races upcoming. We'll see, or one of the Hotlanta races. We'd like to go to Salt Lake City once or twice if we can.
We are going to Salt Lake City. If they let us, we are going.
So let's jump right into this. So we've had 5 rounds, Karen, and what would you say is like, the biggest storyline, the thing that you're the most excited about so far with the Supercross season? What is it?
out of the mouth of babes tonight on the couch. Our little 3-year-old is chanting, Ken Roxon, Ken Roxon. So, yes, that's what my personal headline is when we can get the kids involved and they're all cheering. So, yeah, I'm so excited for Ken and what he's able to accomplish right now. So, that's my headline.
Why? What is it about Ken? What's he accomplishing that's got you so excited?
Well, I mean, he's the points leader, first of all. And second of all, he won back-to-back races this last 2. And when he won his first one, what was that, Tuesday? I don't even know what day it is. Saturday.
It was Saturday, just a couple days ago.
I don't even know what day it is. Saturday, he had that super adorable hug with his wife and his little son, Griffin, who was smiling from ear to ear. And little Courtney, his wife, she was just crying in tears of joy. And that moment where it's like, oh, that's what it's all about. You know, he has someone, a family unit to celebrate his successes with. And I don't know. You could just see that he's growing up and maturing quite a bit, and I'm just really happy for him.
What's his wife's name? Courtney or something?
Yep. Yeah, I just said that.
Oh, sorry. I was looking I was looking over the point sheet. I was trying to come up with my next question for you, and I forgot that you'd said that. So, and what's his little baby's name?
Also said that, Griffin.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. You're multitasking. It's fine. That's what we do. We multitask.
Obviously not well.
Evidence of our life.
So I also, before you came down here, Karen was up putting kind of the last bit of kids to bed. And I came down here to kind of print out some things and just kind of think about some of the things that I thought were going on for the season. And the first thing that I typed out was Ken Roxon. I typed out Ken Roxon overcoming adversity. I don't know if Supercross is popular enough to warrant this, but I feel like you could, if you wanted to, and somebody will probably try to tell this story. If you and hopefully the season continues to go like it is for Ken Roxon, and he's wildly successful and wins a Supercross title in the 450. I would like nothing more than to see that. But the thing that I wanted to bring up is just the overcoming story, like the story of like overcoming adversity is Ken Roxon. He is this German rider that comes over to America, has a ton of success early, motocross, supercross, 250s, 450s. He's just like feared by everyone. And then suddenly he has a couple of injuries. Like he has a really, really nasty injury. Like a lot of you guys know the story with Ken Roxon. Crashed. He had a season-ending injury. I don't know what it was, 2017, 2018, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And just had to have like 20 surgeries on his arm. It was infected so bad at one point, the doctors were going to amputate his arm. And said, you'll never ride a bike again, all of these things. You're never going to be able to do this. And he fights through it and figures out a way to make it happen. He comes back the next year. It's amazing that he's even on a bike and he gets injured again.
Yeah.
I think it was the other elbow the next time, right?
I can't remember.
The details are a little fuzzy, but the point is he's gone through some incredible adversity in the last couple of years. And then
the cadaver.
And then even last year in 2020, everyone was kind of freaking out with the COVID thing, and he was having a bunch of health issues that he couldn't really diagnose. He couldn't really figure out what was going on. He's having some breathing issues. It was like all of a sudden in the second half of races, he's fading. He would get out there at the front, and then next thing you know, he's like fading back. Yeah. And he couldn't like keep it up. And it remains to be seen if he's got that part figured out. But the point is, he's had a lot to deal with in the last couple of years, and he is getting it down. Right now, he is getting it down, and he has had a ton of adversity, even the last few races. He goes and he gets penalized for jumping in a red cross and a couple races ago in Houston. And I think it was probably Houston 2. He gets penalized for jumping in a red cross. He says, look, I couldn't see the flag because I had a couple racers it's just hard to see, and I didn't see the flag. He wasn't the only person that jumped through it. There were 4 other guys that jumped through that flag. So it was just kind of probably not in the easiest place to see it. You came around a corner, there was a red flag, red medical flag there, and he jumped through that one little section. They docked him 4 points. That hurt because he was, he had got second place in the first race. And so then in the second race, getting docked 4 positions really, kind of stinks. It was 3 or not positions, but 3 or 4 points, and he has to kind of overcome that adversity. And then the very next race, it was Houston 3. What happens there with Dean Wilson? Do you remember, Karen?
Yeah. So Dean Wilson, he became a lapped rider.
And Ken is leading the race. Has led the entire, basically the entire race, right?
Yeah. Ken's leading the race, and the last lap and a half of the race, Ken gets stopped up behind Dean Wilson, and Dean will not get over. Blue flag after blue flag, and then one of the last...
And Cooper Webb is all over Ken Roczen. Cooper Webb is right behind Ken Roczen, giving him everything he can handle.
So Ken Roczen's basically playing offense and defense at the same time. And in one of his interviews, he was saying how difficult that was. But his tire hit the back of Dean Wilson, and he made a little bobble. And long story short, Cooper was able to capitalize on that mistake and get around Ken and win the race with just, I don't know how many yards to go. But I was like, no, I love Cooper though. And so I was excited for him too. But, I really just wanted Ken to have the win. But he was so livid.
He was so pissed off. And it was actually really fun to see Ken like that, to see him fiery like that. Because after the race, he's like throwing up his arms at Dean Wilson because Dean still had to do a whole nother lap. So Ken Roczen is able to come in to the pits, and it totally cost Ken Roczen the win. And even Cooper Webb, who got the win, he knew it. He knew it was a hollow victory. They both knew it. They're both professionals. And Cooper Webb has stolen like 4 races from Ken Roczen in the last lap. In the last part of the last lap, like 4 times. It's insane. It's happened in front of us. It happened right in front of me and Karen one time down in Arlington a couple of years ago. I think it was Arlington 2019. Cooper Webb comes up and just rips him a new one right on the very last turn. It's happened multiple times. Those guys probably aren't like the best buds, but they're actually pretty professional. I think they have a healthy respect for each other. But so Ken Roczen is, he's finished the race. Dean Wilson still has to go around another time. So it takes another 45 seconds. By that time, Ken Roczen has got his helmet off. He's given the bike to someone else, and he's waiting. He's walked over to where he knows Dean Wilson has to come by. And he's waiting there, throwing his arms up, yelling and screaming at him like, why didn't you pull over, bro? I was behind you screaming and yelling and revving my bike for 3/4 of a lap. But it was longer than that. Ken said it was 3/4 of a lap, but it was more than that. And Dean apologized on social media and said, look, it was a mistake. I didn't realize it was leaders behind me and all this stuff. And I also do want to say Dean Wilson is from what I know, Dean Wilson is a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
And I think he got lambasted on social media. Can I just say something? Stop with the freaking social media trolling. Just stop it. If you're doing that, stop it. He made a mistake.
He's human. Yeah.
So just stop it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dean Wilson was super. He was super.
Brief intermission.
Yeah, he was tired. He was. He was. It was a bad deal. And so going back to Ken Roczen, he is overcoming all these things, and it was so cool because at the podium interview, he's like, I kind of want to punch a hole in the wall, but I've been working on my patience, and it was just fun to see how emotionally charged he was, but yet he was keeping it together and everything.
And the crowd went wild when he said that.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of want to punch a hole in the wall right now,
But I've been practicing my patience, trying to be a good person because I'm a dad now.
Yeah.
Oh, so respectable though.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and I think Karen touched on it. It's been fun to kind of watch Ken Roczen grow up. We've been seeing him race here for many years. I think he's 26, maybe turning 27 in late April this year, and you've really just gotten to see him grow up, and a lot of these other kids the same way, and it's been really fun to see him kind of get his family and now with his son, and they're having a lot of fun. He's talked twice, the last 2 podiums that he has won, because he's won the last 2 races in Indianapolis, and he is the points leader. and has been the points leader now for 3 or 4 races. He said that, it's fun to be out there in the pits changing diapers and,
Yeah, I loved that.
What was the thing that he said? Was it the last race, maybe Indianapolis won? He said something, and it might have been the post race
conference.
What did he remember? What I'm talking about?
Yeah, so it was in the press conference. I think this is what you're talking about. He said, that he's just so excited to have a family, a wife, and a baby. And then he said, it's something that you can't explain to someone who's not a parent.
Wasn't he saying that it was fun to come down and see his wife and kid right on the race
And that was what I was talking about at the beginning was, as soon as he won, that's where he went to. And Courtney's crying and Griffin is happier than, a kid in the candy store. His little smile was so adorable. And he said that's what it's really all about is, the family and having a baby and something that you can't explain to people who don't have kids. And how true is that? You don't know what you don't know when you're young and don't have a family. But then when you have your first child and they're smiling at you because they're just happy to see you, I mean, that's just, you can't explain that. You can't write that in words, really.
Yeah. And he said it's kind of hard to explain that. And I'm like, well, it's probably hard for a lot of your different competitors to relate to what you're saying, but the rest of us that are parents out here, we know exactly what you mean. We saw the look on your face. We saw the look on the baby's face, and your wife's face and everything. And because you're in this, it's like your whole life. You've got everything is riding on this, and you're working so hard. Courtney sees the work that you're putting in. And neither of you get sleep because you got this baby, and it's like this major thing that's going on, and you're sharing it now with your wife and your baby, and it's really cool to see kind of that progression going on. So Ken Roxon is having fun changing diapers in the pits, and he's having fun winning, and I hope it continues.
Me too.
For me, so far, that's the big story of the 2021 season is just Ken Roxon being there, and he is a smooth operator. Like tonight, you guys will probably be seeing this podcast. I'll probably release it tomorrow morning, but Indianapolis too, he was a man among boys. Yeah. Everyone else they were kids compared to him, and he was the man out there, and it was really cool to see.
And for a minute, I thought maybe there was a chance for Tomac to, creep his way through the pack around 10 minutes or so. We had that thought that, he's got 10 minutes and he's also 10 seconds behind the leader, which was Ken Roxon. And, we just thought there's a chance, but Barsha kept him off for a while and he just didn't have it tonight. So.
Barsha kept him off the entire time. I think Tomac could have put some time in there. He certainly could have cut that lead down, but Barsha turned into a wall. Justin Barsha turned into an absolute stone wall.
Way to go, Barsha.
that Eli Tomac could not get around. Because if there's anyone that could have done it, anyone at all, it's Tomac. We've seen Tomac charge people down more bigger gaps than that in the past. But Tomac is also, I think he's maturing. I don't know.
Also got a baby now.
I can't help but wonder if Tomac's hardest charging, his hardest charging days are behind him. I think they probably are. Now that doesn't mean that Tomac couldn't rip off another win, like another championship, but I think his hardest charging days are behind him. He's like 27, 28, somewhere in there, right, Karen?
I don't know.
So that's fun. The 450 points race is actually pretty tight right now. And the field, the field is stacked. The field is absolutely stacked right now. I mean, I know we don't have a person that is maybe like super dominating, like a Ricky Carmichael or Jeremy McGrath or even a Ryan Villapoto. But there's a lot of people in there. Excuse me, I got to clear my throat.
Yeah, you do. But towards the beginning of January, it was interesting because Barsha won the first round and then who was next? It was
Eli,
and then Cooper. And so you've got all of these points that were so close together for a few weeks. And now, I mean, Ken has pulled out with 13 ahead now. But, for the first few weeks, it was so close. And so that's kind of fun to see. I like it when it's a little more fun and competitive that way, when there's more, real good leaders towards the top and things are tight.
Yeah, because you had, in the first 4 rounds, you had 4 different winners. Justin Barcia, Eli Tomac, Cooper Webb, Ken Roxon. And then Ken Roxon ripped off, 2 in a row here, which is another thing. He hasn't done that since 2017. He hasn't won back-to-back races since 2017, which is pretty cool. And then rounding out there, so there's your top 4 in points: Roxon, Webb, Eli Tomac, Justin Barcia, then Adam Cianciarulo, to round out your top 5 in points. And so it's been very, very close so far. And that happens sometimes, but you don't always get it where you get, 4 different winners in the first 5 rounds. That's pretty cool,
Yeah.
And I was going to say the field is stacked, because I'm going to list off some names to you where it shouldn't really shock anyone if they were to win a race. Now let's count them. So Ken Roxon obviously is 1, Cooper Webb is 2, Tomac is 3, Barcia, it wouldn't shock anyone that he wins, because he rips off a win or 2 each year. It wouldn't shock anyone if Adam Cianciarulo won a race. It wouldn't shock anyone if Zach Osborne won a race. It wouldn't shock anyone if Marvin Muscan won a race. It wouldn't shock anyone if Jason Anderson won a race. And I haven't even gotten into rookies, because it wouldn't really shock anyone that bad if
Dylan
Ferrandis won,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't shock anyone that much if the other rookie I was going to talk about, Chase Sexton, won. I mean, Chase hasn't really done anything, but I just named 10 guys, and I haven't even gotten into the Malcolm Stewarts or to the Justin Braytons or Joey Savacci or even Dean Wilson. I haven't talked about any of those guys. There are so many people here that could win races. You have 8 to 10 guys that are lining up in these 450 classes where no one would really be that surprised if they won.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely stacked. It isn't like there's only 2 guys that could win a race. At any one point, say, who am I talking? Zach Osborne. At any one point, Zach Osborne could rip off a win. I mean, he did win the 450 outdoor class last year in 2020. And same thing with Marvin Muscan. Even Aaron Plessinger. He hasn't done it. He hasn't done it yet. Aaron Plessinger hasn't won a 450 race yet.
AP7.
But he totally could. So there's a bunch of guys in there. And so
Cianciarulo, yeah.
The field is very stacked. Let's talk about the 250 class a little bit here, Karen. What are your main takeaways from the 250 East class? Because that's all we've seen is the 250 East. For those of you that aren't that familiar, in the 250 class, they split up the divisions East and West. I think it's a total mistake. And maybe I don't know enough about it, but I think they need to just have a 250 class, national class. And I think that the talent would be less distributed there, and we'd actually be getting better racing. But what do you think about the 250 East so far, Karen?
I think it's a complete wreck. So, I mean, it's not consistent. It's all over the place. People are crashing left and right. And some of them are season ending, and some are, at least a few races out. And I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're the same caliber of riders as they have been the last few years.
It feels, and I totally agree. It feels a lot to me, and we'll see more. It'll be nice to see the West Coast guys, the guys that are racing the West Coast division. But it feels to me like it's pretty depleted, the 250 East. And it's really starting to show to me that there's not enough guys at the top level to have two different 250 divisions.
Yeah.
Because tonight, they were lapping the 2 guys that ended up 2 or 3 people that ended up being on the lead lap. There was only 3 guys on the lead lap at the end. They only do a 15-minute race. They lapped all the way up to 4th place.
Which is crazy.
That's
They
stupid.
were 35 seconds behind or something, the leader.
No. The laps were like 48 seconds.
Well,
so
but
what happened is it was like you had 1 and 2 that were pretty close together, and then I think it was Joe Shimoda. I don't have the results in front of me. I think Joe Shimoda was third, and he was like 35 points back.
Which I really like
35
him, by the way.
seconds back is what I'm saying. And that happened because Joe Shimoda got tied up in the first corner and was basically back at the end of the pack. Which, weren't you going to bring up something about Joe Shimoda there?
Oh, no, I've really liked him. I heard him speak for the first time when he got his, what was it?
I think
second?
it was
Third. Yeah?
He got the third place because that gift
right.
from Christian Craig.
Colt
we'll talk
Nichols.
about that.
Yeah. But I mean, he just seems so humble, and you could tell that, English is not his first language. I think he's Japanese, and
He's from Suzuki, Japan, I think.
he just really impressed me with, his outlook. He said that he didn't want to win a race the way he did, and he wants to win it for himself, and he knows what he's got to work on. And there's a lot of good riders, and he was very complimentary of the people that he rides with or against, I should say. And I don't know, I was just really impressed by who he is, as a person.
Yeah, he said, because he got on the podium because of a debacle between Christian Craig and Jet Lawrence, and he said up there on the podium that he's like, that really wasn't my podium, and I want to do this again, but actually earn it, which was pretty cool to see. So, but yeah, Karen's right. The 250 East class is kind of a wreck. Tons of people have, gotten hurt. I don't have the injury report right in front of me. But there's been a bunch of guys that have gone out, like title contenders, like Austin Faulkner, and just a bunch of different dudes that are out and not racing. And now it just leaves kind of a depleted class where you really had really only Colt Nichols, Christian Craig, Jet Lawrence, and Michael Mosiman. And everyone else has kind of been hurt.
Yeah.
And so then you've got all these guys that are qualifying for the main events that normally wouldn't be there, and it's just creating a ton of chaos. And I know lappers are always part of the thing, and it's part of the deal. But I mean, tonight Michael Mosiman basically, I wouldn't say had the race taken from him because it was about halfway through, but Michael Mosiman was leading the 250 main, and a dude gets ejected. One of the lappers that he is lapping gets ejected like 12 feet off the bike in a rhythm lane, and the bike flips over and hits him, and then Michael Mosiman is trying to go around him and pounds into this kid. I can't even remember who it was, but it was pretty gnarly. It was pretty gnarly.
He's okay.
It was a pretty gnarly crash that he had, and then Michael Mosiman, boom, comes and pounds him, and it's like it seems like you got a bunch of riders on the track that really shouldn't be there for the main events, and they're just struggling. And I think that this is a symptom of having these two, the division between the top riders and then the privateers in the 250 is very, very vast, in my opinion. It's almost like the gap is getting wider. And I know these race teams have enough money to do this, because the whole idea is like, we're gonna have an East division and a West division, because it'll make it easier for these people who are, that way they don't have to travel as much.
But is it worth it?
I don't think that's working anymore. and maybe it is. Maybe if I, was more plugged in, I would know that's working. It's still working as it's intended, but it doesn't feel like it is. It feels like the talent level is too depleted. And then you've got these super awesome guys. You've got a couple super awesome guys in each division, East and West division, and then just a bunch of guys that aren't nearly as good. And obviously every single one of those riders is 100 times better than I'll ever be on a motocross, supercross track. I don't do that type of riding, but I don't know. I just think
I do.
It's one of those things. So another thing we learned tonight about the race officials is they don't know what the difference between the white flag and the checker flag is.
What was up with that?
So in the 250 main, you literally have Colt Nichols out there leading the race. And he's got Michael Mosiman behind him and Christian Craig behind him. And
the clock is clear.
And he's coming around and he's supposed to get the white flag. and he gets the checkered flag. They pull out the checkered flag. Like Ricky Carmichael's like, what's going on? Like the TV guys are like, what is going on? And they show the replay, and Colt Nichols about breaks his neck and falls off the bike.
Because he cranked around
because he was
air.
like trying to figure out what it was, because he's coming around expecting the white flag, meaning he's got one lap left. And then suddenly the dude whips out the checkered flag, which signifies the race is over. And you could see he like did a double take and then craned his neck all the way around as he's going over the finish line jump to like make sure he didn't see.
He looked like an owl.
It was like, what? And he didn't say anything in the post-race interview. Maybe in the press conference, which we haven't seen because we'll get to see that tomorrow after this is already published. But maybe they'll talk about that. But it was like, what in the world just happened?
Yeah.
What in the world?
And that checker flag guy, he's also human. So there's that.
Yeah. I got a text message from my buddy Kevin tonight after the main, and he's like that was by far the worst race I've ever watched. This was a preview of what government sanctioned Supercross would look like. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, say more. And he's like, first off, and this is another thing too. He's like, first off, I had no idea that one rider could gift his qualifying spot for the main rider for a rider who didn't get the main, because that happened. You had Jet Lawrence, who crashed a couple times during the day. We'll get to that. And then he has to go through the LCQ. Well, who was it? It was what is his name? Dang it! It's off. It just
I don't know where you're going.
It just whipped out of my head. The other rider in the Honda 250, he had his bike lock up him. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. He had his bike lock up on him in the heat race.
Not Lawrence.
And the bike locks up in the air on a jump, maybe on the takeoff, and he like has a hard crash. Oh. So they go out, they swap the motor for the bike in just like 40 minutes or less, probably less, so that he can go out to the LCQ. Well, apparently the AMA were like, the officials were like, no, look, you've changed the frame on this bike. You can't race it in the 250 LCQ. And they're like, no. All we did is we swapped the motor. It's totally fine. But they wouldn't let him race the 450 LCQ. But Jet Lawrence did race the 450 LCQ, even though he couldn't lift his flipping arm because he's so injured.
The 250.
The 250 LCQ. So Jet Lawrence races the 250 LCQ, qualifies for the main. But then they decide right before the main is happening, they wheel him out there and they decide, you know what? I don't think we're going to have Jet Lawrence ride in this. So we're going to now just let, what is his name? It's going to bug me. But they let the other rider on his team race in that 250 main. So you've got like debacles going on where it's like, oh, we're just going to decide to let this guy race in the 250 main even though he didn't qualify. And maybe there's some rule deep in there somewhere where this is totally fine, but it's something that I'd never heard of. So suddenly we've got a guy in the 250 main who didn't qualify for it. And then we have the checkered flag when we're supposed to have a white flag. I'm like, this is craziness. This is total.
Hampshire?
RJ Hampshire. No, I think Hampshire was hurt before. Anyway, it doesn't matter that much. It just means like there were some crazy things going on. I'll have it here because he would have been. It was Mitchell Oldenburg. Mitchell Oldenburg. I just pulled it up here. It was Mitchell Oldenburg that had his bike lock up on him. Like, do you know what we really learned by that? It means don't buy a Honda because you can't even work. It can't even run for 6 minutes through a flipping heat race. I'm just kidding. Honda's fine. But I do have a question. And I asked this of my boys. I firmly believe that any one of my bikes could last for 6 minutes. I wonder what it is, because this has happened before. I've seen this over and over again where a rider comes out on these crazy expensive factory race bikes that I've been told by people have $100,000 worth of bling on them and parts and suspension and blah, 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 blah. And your bike locks up in you in the middle of a bloody heat race?
In the air? Yeah.
And then you go tomahawking off the front of the bike. We've seen it where Barsha couldn't finish a race without blowing a motor. I understand sometimes you can burn up a clutch. I get it. Okay. It's super muddy. You're an aggressive rider, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I understand you could torch a clutch in a race, but what I don't understand is why you can lock up a motor in the middle of a race when all this money and all this stuff is on the line and people are being paid a lot of money and these race teams have huge budgets and you can't make a 250 or 450, it doesn't matter. You can't make one of these motorcycles last for 7 minutes. I'm just like, what's going on? And so then Mitchell Oldenburg doesn't get to qualify for the main, yet they gift him an entry to the main because Jet is hurt.
Yeah. We should probably talk about that because we've alluded to it a few times.
So Jet, what's the story with Jet Lawrence, Karen? He's a 17-year-old kid from Australia. Give us what you know about Jet.
He's so cute, first of all.
You think he's cute, like his face is cute?
Yeah,
or
he's just so cute.
Is it his personality or
what? His personality, yeah. He's just a cute little thing, you know? He's young and I feel like he's got some massive potential, but he's riding over his head right now. So he keeps crashing and I don't know. My heart hurts every time he flips through the air or face plants somewhere. But today he had 2 doozies of crashes. So do you want to take those?
Yeah, so Jet Lawrence is fast. Ain't nobody got any speed on Jet in the 250 class, but the dude is he's hitting the dirt a lot. He's crashing a lot. And I feel like he's had enough races now. This is his second season. He raced about 3-ish, 2.5 races last year in 2020, and then he crashed himself out of that. I think it was Anaheim 2. Karen and I were there, and he was leading that race, that main, but he was riding over his head. 16-year-old kid, and then you had the dirty Frenchman Dylan Ferrandis come up behind him and really scare him. And next thing you know, I shouldn't have said dirty Frenchman. I just love that. I just love to say that about Dylan Ferrandis. But I'm not trolling him on social media like some of the people out there, right? Anyway, so Jet Lawrence basically knocks himself out on the front of a jump face.
Yeah, he's just laying there lifeless.
And that was his season last year. And then this year he's come out and he won one of these suckers. He's just got so much confidence and he's so talented and all these things, but he is kind of riding over his head and he's crashing a lot. And today in qualifying practice at, Indy 2, he had a really hard crash, busted the front of his helmet off, his visor off, and he was bleeding. It was out of his face. Yeah, it was one of those types of crashes, which we didn't see live, but then we saw it the
recap of
in the
footage.
Heat race. Yeah, in the Heat race, he pile drove his face into the ground again, kind of jumped over on the side of the track, hit a tough block, and boom. The kid has a ton of potential, and what I'm hoping is that he can figure out how to dial that dial back from 11. The dial only goes to 10, but he's got it turned to 11 all the time. He's got to figure out how to fine-tune that to 9.5 out of 10 instead of 11 out of 10. Otherwise, this career is going to be really short. And you don't want that. But It's kind of crazy because you see how so just today in his racing today, he hit the ground twice, probably harder than I've ever hit the ground in my decade of riding. And he still then went out there and entered that 450 or 250 LCQ.
Yeah, so his face is bleeding and his shoulders hurt and he can't even like move it as he's walking.
The way that he looked as he's walking, it looked like he had broken his collarbone because it was like he was holding his arm. The arm wasn't swinging at all. And so they probably made the right call by keeping him out. But it's just super weird that all of a sudden they could be like, hey, Jet qualified, but we just want to give this over here to Mitchell Oldenburg. That seems like a thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Strange.
That's craziness, but that happened. So Colt Nichols, rising star. That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So he's on the Star Racing Yamalube or whatever team. He's on the same team as Christian Craig. Those guys are kind of like Christian Craig is wanting to move up to the 450s. I think Christian Craig is like 65 years old.
Oh my gosh,
isn't
no.
He? No, he's like 29. But
so
in
Craig
motocross years, that he's like over the hill,
Over the hill.
He is.
You're pushing 40 though.
Speaking of over the hill, where have all the hill boys gone?
I don't know.
We used to have Josh Hill and Jeremy Hill and
Justin Hill.
I really like Justin Hill. We haven't even seen Justin Hill. Here's another one we haven't seen. Where the freak is Blake Baggett?
BB4.
Where is Blake Baggett? I want to know. If any of you know, because I'm not on social media looking at this stuff. I can't do it. But if anyone knows where BB4 is, send me an email. Kyle@dirtbikechannel.com. I want to hear from you. Because Blake Baggett is like a great rider. He's a top 10 rider for sure. He was with that, Rocky Mountain ATV, KTM, Western Power Sports, 12 other name team last year. And he's a great rider. Seems like a team player, family man. And suddenly, boom, he is just nowhere to be seen. And then they come up with Joey Bloody Savacci to replace him?
Yeah, that's weird.
I mean, you go from Blake Baggett to Joey Savacci? Like, I don't want to be mean, but where's Blake Baggett? Where's Blake Baggett? Where's Justin Hill? Where's Jew Hill? Where's Josh Hill? Josh Hill's probably... but there's some guys that's like, where are they? I don't know where they are. Makes me worried. Maybe they were abducted by aliens or something.
No, I saw somewhere that Blake Baggett, like it's somebody's on one of his comments in a post he had. But it was something about how he's maybe going to ride in a different, what are they called? League? What is it called?
You said that like MXGP over in Europe. Yeah. And I would say, why would you do that?
I don't know.
I just want to know what's the story behind that. Karen, here's another one I want to know. Where's Jason Anderson? Where is the Jason Anderson from 2018?
El Hombre.
Because I know El Hombre has been entering these races. I can see in these results cards that El Hombre is in 13th position. He is 62 points out of the lead, and we've only had 5 rounds. I know he dislocated his finger or something, so he didn't race this last one. So that also explains why he's so far out of the points lead. The point is, he got 8 points, 11 points, 15 points, 16 points. Jason Anderson is a Supercross 450 champion from 2018.
Is he a one-hit wonder?
He dominated. Well, I shouldn't say dominated, because in that year, Marvin Muscan was one race away from beating him.
Yeah.
But the point is, Jason Anderson was good. He was the man. And now suddenly... the next year, 2019, he only raced a couple of races because he got injured. And then 2020, he hardly did anything at all. And then so far, he has been gone. Like, where are you? Where's the Jason Anderson? What have you done with him?
We don't know.
I have another question. So what's going on with Christian Craig and Jet?
Okay. Before we get into that, I do want to point out Christian Craig's first win this year. He broke down sobbing.
Yeah, that was cool.
Oh, I was so happy for him because I follow him on Instagram, and it just felt like there has been a lot of heaviness in his life, and just to have that win under his belt, he was so grateful, and his wife was so grateful, and the kids, they were cheering, and I don't know. I'm a Christian Craig fan, and I wish him all the best. So the whole thing with Jet Lawrence is what you're trying to get me to talk about, and I squirreled. But so yeah, Christian Craig was leading.
No, he was in second.
Oh, he was
because Colt Nichols was working him
first. Yeah.
So Christian Craig was getting worked by his teammate.
Yep.
For the entire race.
So he was in second, and Jet Lawrence had a rocky go and was working his way back through the pack, kind of like an Eli Tomac move where he's like the dark horse picking people off one at a time.
Riding at 11.
Riding at 11, but not crashing. And then he is going in to pass.
But he had put it in the dirt twice. So you say not crashing, but Jet Lawrence had put it in the dirt twice. This
little part of where I'm talking about of the race is what I'm talking about. I didn't say that out loud. I thought it. Sometimes I do that.
You said he wasn't crashing, but I'm like, no.
But no, I get my part of the race in my head, you know?
Christian Craig was riding without crashing. Jet Lawrence crashed twice and was still able to catch Christian Craig.
Yeah,
That's
he
how
was
that went
on
down.
fire and booming. So anyway, so he was coming up on Christian Craig. Was it the second to last turn?
It was really, it was close there at the end.
Super close. And Christian Craig was not having it, having somebody pass him when he's only got 2 laps to go, and he had just had a win and he wants to keep his points, right? And then Christian Craig kind of went into him, gave him the wheel, so to speak, but from the defense. And then they both got tangled and went down. And yeah, it looked super dirty for sure. But I don't think Christian Craig is dirty. That's my point.
Yeah, he was just not, he was trying to not get past. But unfortunately, he took them both out. Now, I have a really hard time with people that say, well, he didn't mean to do that. He meant to try to keep Jet from passing him. Of course, he didn't want to go down as well, but he was trying to keep, Jet behind him. The sad part about that whole deal is he fell all the way off the podium. And I mean, those are points that he will never be able to get back. And it's totally possible he could lose the entire championship just by those points right there. Because he was going to get a second place. If Jet Lawrence passes him, he gets a third place. But because he decided to take them both out, he ended up in like 5th or something. And those are valuable points. And he's going to have a hard time chasing down his teammate. Because at the time, I think he was sharing the red plate with his teammate at that moment, as far as like the tied in the championship points. And now he's several points back. He's given up that lead. It's solely in Colt Nichols' hands.
But Daniel Blair, he made a good point in an interview after that race, and he was saying that he had both hands on the brakes, and he was, just trying to stop. And because of the way his tires were, the wheelie or something, he couldn't get both wheels to brake. And so, I don't know. He said that he felt bad for Christian Craig because he had been hit so hard, but Christian Craig doesn't have a record of fighting dirty like a Bam Bam or even Ferrandis. Oh, yeah, it was to Christian Craig that Ferrandis, yeah. Anyway, squirreling again. But I don't know. I just feel bad for Christian Craig, for all of the people that are just so mad at him. But he really was just doing his best, trying not to get beat by a 16-year-old, Anyway.
Yeah, people overreact to a lot of things and will yell at the TV and everything, but everyone just needs to take a breath and realize that these guys make mistakes. Even last year when I was so upset about Dylan Ferrandis for taking Christian Craig out, like, it was a mistake. It was a dirty mistake. I think that Dylan really did come in there too hard on that whole deal. And in this case, Christian went too hard on it. It wasn't nearly as, violent of a thing, but these guys make mistakes. They're trying. It's hard. Like, what they're doing is hard. I ride dirt bikes. I don't do the type of riding that they're doing, but I will tell you, it's hard. There's so many things happening all at once, and there's so many pressures on these guys and whatever, and it's the heat of the moment, and it's adrenaline, and it's all these things, and it's amazing they don't have more injuries. It's so crazy.
They're so tough, too.
And like, just you have different guys that are just like, oh, this guy passed me hard one race. It's like Michael Mosman, has a little bit of a run in with Mitchell Oldenburg or whoever it was. Or no, it was Jet. It was Jet.
I think it was Jet.
It was Jet Lawrence. Jet Lawrence and Michael Mosman had a run in one week, and Jet Lawrence puts Michael Mosman on the ground, and the very, very next time that Michael Mosman sees Jet Lawrence on a racetrack in a race, he puts Jet Lawrence down.
Yeah.
It was the very first next time that they are next to each other on a race in a corner, and Michael Mosman puts him down. Yeah. Oh my goodness, we should have put this in.
I know exactly where you're going.
We should have put this in, because the other thing we've learned so far, and Michael Mosman taught us this. We learned that Jesus is a savage.
He's I'm a Jesus fan.
A Jesus follower.
A Jesus follower. And some people think that, Jesus is weak, but Jesus is not weak. He is strong. And then he's Jesus is a savage.
He said, yeah, but Jesus is not weak. Jesus is a savage. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is like the quote of the. So do we name this podcast Jesus is a Savage, or do we name it I feel like punching a hole in the wall right now? Yeah. Or what do we name it? But like, yeah, it's been, and these guys have so much control over their bikes that I think so much of this stuff, sometimes they get a pass for like, oh, that wasn't intentional. And other times it's like, no, that was intentional. Michael Mosiman said straight up after that heat race, that he intended to put Jet Lawrence down. He's like, I didn't want him to think I was just going to roll over on that. And I wanted to, just pay it back. And I think we're square now. And it was like 100%. I knew what was happening. I was going to put him down. It wasn't going to be super violent. I was going to do exactly to him what he did to me last weekend. Okay, now we're good. These guys have a lot of control over these motorcycles, And so I have to say to Christian Craig, you knew that you were pushing him wide. But the truth is, you wanted to push him off the track, but you stay on the track. That's how you wanted it to happen. And then it kind of got away from you, and both of you ended up off the track. But let's not have any, things about like you didn't mean to do that.
We could call this one Another One Bites the Dust.
You meant to do that. You just didn't mean to go down yourself. So anyway, good times. It's been really fun to watch so far. As you can tell, we're pretty big fans here of Supercross. We watch with the kids. They don't always all watch with us, but most of the time we've got 2 out of the 4 kids sitting there watching us, and then we'll, if they're out hanging out with friends or whatever, then they want to watch the recaps and everything the next morning. So yeah, it's a pretty fun deal, and I hope that these 250 riders a lot of them can get healed back up and they can get back into it, so at least we can have a little bit better racing, because it seems like it's depleted. And I really hope that Ken Roczen can continue on his run and get this thing going.
Yeah. Go 94.
I also want it to be competitive. I want Cooper Webb to do well. I want Eli Tomac to do well. I would love to see Adam Cirillo get a couple wins in there. And Marvin, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I'd like to see Zach Osborne get up there on the box several times. I mean, there's a bunch of people in here that I think are cool guys that'll be fun to root for. But ultimately, I'm on the Ken Roczen train. It's not just because he's leading in the points. We wanted Ken Roczen to win last year, and
we did,
and it just didn't work out for him. But it was good. It was good for Eli Tomac to get the monkey off his back. Oh yeah, we should mention that Eli Tomac, after one of those races, getting second place, he seemed like a totally new dude.
Yeah.
He was pretty happy, right?
He actually smiled.
It wasn't this race. It must have been
No.
It was Indianapolis 1. He'd had a really good battle for a lot of the race with Ken Roczen. He ended up short in second place, but he was pretty happy, right?
And then today he was not happy.
Yeah. Then today he ends up. What did he end up today? Today he must have gotten third.
This music is playing for a while.
It's a long bumper song. And it's quiet. It's soothing to everyone.
Oh, so
But
soothing.
Eli
What a
Tomac
headbang.
was super happy a couple races ago, or last race, and then last night he wasn't as happy with his third place point. But it was nice to see him get the monkey off his back last year, and I would like to see Kenny Boy Roczen get the monkey off his back in the 450 Premier Division in Supercross this year and get a championship. That would be awesome. Long season. There's a bunch of races left. How many races do we have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 more rounds. I should have known.
Yes.
We've done 5 rounds and there's 17. So there's 12 more to go. Good luck to him.
Good luck to all.
What else you got, Karen?
I don't have a lot. I said all my stuff.
Karen said all her stuff.
I did.
So at this point, we'll just ask you to leave a single track. Thanks, everybody.